Welcome to Power to Unlocked. Today we're diving into a question that's as puzzling as it is frustrating. Why do the most foolish people often end up holding the reins of power? You've probably noticed it. Leaders who seem clueless, decisions that don't make sense, chaos where order should be. It feels like a bad joke played on all of us, but this isn't a random mistake or some weird coincidence. No, this is something far deeper, something Machiavelli himself observed centuries ago. He saw the game behind the curtain, the hidden rules that let the least qualified rise to the top. Imagine a kingdom where wisdom and skill should be the keys to leadership. Yet, time and again, it's the reckless, the careless, or the simply unfit who grab the crown, the presidency, or the highest offices. It's not just about politics, it's about power itself and how it corrupts or reveals the true nature of those who seek it. You might be asking, how does this happen? How can fools be trusted with so much control? That's exactly what we'll explore in this story, peeling back the layers of history, psychology, and power dynamics. Niccolò Machiavelli, the author of The Prince, warned us about this centuries ago. He didn't just write a manual on ruling, he revealed uncomfortable truths about human nature and leadership. Machiavelli knew that sometimes the qualities that help someone climb the ladder of power are not the qualities that make a good leader. Charm, boldness, or ruthless ambition might get you there, but wisdom and prudence, not always. And that's where things start to unravel. We'll meet characters from history who fit this pattern, leaders whose decisions baffled their people, whose mistakes cost nations dearly, yet somehow they stayed in power longer than anyone expected. We'll uncover why systems designed to protect us from bad leadership sometimes fail, and how the very rules of politics can favor the foolish over the wise. The story isn't just about the past either. It's about today's world, where social media, populism, and misinformation make this ancient problem worse than ever. As we dive deeper, you'll begin to see patterns you never noticed before. Why do crowds cheer for the loudest voice instead of the smartest? How do leaders manipulate fear and hope to stay in control? And most importantly, what does it mean for all of us when those in charge don't really know what they're doing? But beware. This story isn't comfortable. It's unsettling to think that power might not be about merit or justice, but about something much darker and more complicated. And that raises a terrifying question. If the most foolish can reach the highest office, what hope do the rest of us have? How can societies break this cycle? In the next part, we'll start unveiling the mechanisms that let fools rule and explore Machiavelli's insights that still ring true today. You won't want to miss how these ideas connect with current events and why understanding this could be the key to protecting your future. So stay with us, because what comes next will change how you see power and the people who claim it. To really understand why the most foolish people end up in power, we have to go back to the very nature of power itself. Power isn't just about rules or elections, it's about people, and people are complicated. We want to believe that the smartest, the kindest, or the most capable will rise to lead us. But history tells a different story. Time and again, it's those who know how to play the game, who understand how to push the right buttons, who grab the spotlight and refuse to let go. Think about it. Leadership isn't always about knowing the right answers. Sometimes it's about convincing others you do. Machiavelli called this the art of appearance. How a leader seems is often more important than who they really are. The clever use of words, the ability to charm a crowd, or the skill to stir emotions can mask incompetence in a way that's hard to see at first glance. And when people are caught up in hope or fear, they stop asking the hard questions. But why does this happen so often? Why do systems designed to prevent foolish leadership so frequently fail? One reason is that power attracts people with ambition, sometimes with a hunger so strong they're willing to bend rules, ignore facts, or manipulate others. These traits can be dangerous, but they can also be effective tools for climbing to the top. Meanwhile, those who are careful, humble, or truly wise often shy away from the messy, brutal game of politics. It's a paradox that has haunted societies for centuries, and it's not just about individuals. The structures that support leadership can be flawed too. When decision-making is based on popularity instead of competence, or when loyalty matters more than honesty, the door opens wide for the unqualified to step in. Add the power of mass media and social networks today, and it's easy to see how misinformation spreads and how emotional appeals drown out reason. What's even more unsettling is how this cycle repeats itself, generation after generation. Each time people hope for change, only to face the same disappointments. Machiavelli warned that the nature of power means that fools aren't just occasional visitors. They can become the norm. The question is, how do we break free from this endless loop? And can we recognize the signs before it's too late? This mystery is far from solved, and the deeper we look, the more tangled the web becomes. So, keep watching. The next chapters will reveal the hidden tactics, the unexpected players, and the truths Machiavelli knew that still shape our world today. The pull of power is a force that twists and bends reality for everyone involved. It's not just a game played by those seeking the top spot. It's a battle fought in the minds of the people who follow. What makes this even more complicated is that the conflict isn't simply between the wise and the foolish. There are layers of influence, hidden agendas, and unexpected players. On one side, you have those hungry for control, willing to use every trick in the book to climb higher. On the other, you have the everyday people caught in the crossfire, sometimes unaware, sometimes powerless, but always affected. Take the story of a leader who, despite obvious flaws, manages to keep a loyal following. At first glance, their mistakes seem clear to outsiders, but for their supporters, these flaws are either ignored or spun into strengths. The subplots here are fascinating: loyalty born out of fear, hope, or even desperation. Some believe the leader is the only one who can protect them from chaos, while others are swept up in the charisma and promises that feel like a lifeline. Meanwhile, a silent majority watches, frustrated and anxious, wondering how this person remains in power. From another angle, there are those behind the scenes, the advisors, the media, and the influencers who shape the narrative and push the leader's image forward. Their motives aren't always pure. Sometimes it's about money, power, or survival. They know how to amplify certain messages and hide inconvenient truths, turning public opinion like a tide. This adds another layer to the conflict, where truth and deception dance together, and it becomes harder for people to tell fact from fiction. Then there's the role of social media and instant communication, a modern twist that Machiavelli could never have imagined. Now, a single tweet or viral video can change the course of a political career overnight. This environment favors the loudest, the most outrageous, and sometimes the least informed voices. The tools meant to connect people end up fueling division and confusion, making it easier for foolish leaders to thrive in a sea of noise. The tension grows when you consider how checks and balances, the systems designed to prevent bad leadership, can themselves be weakened or manipulated. When loyalty replaces integrity and blind obedience replaces critical thinking, the safeguards fail. This creates an environment where mistakes are ignored and bad decisions pile up, all while the leader clings tighter to power. But what about those who try to resist? The voices of reason, the whistleblowers, the activists. Their stories add urgency to the conflict. They struggle to be heard over the roar of misinformation and fear. Sometimes they face backlash or threats, and other times they're dismissed as out of touch or irrelevant. Their fight highlights how difficult it is to break free from the cycle where foolishness rules. All these angles come together to form a complex web, one where power, fear, hope, loyalty, and deception collide. The stakes are high because the consequences aren't just political, they affect real lives, real futures, and the biggest question remains unanswered. How does this pattern continue, and what can stop it before it spirals even further? As we peel back more layers of this story, you'll see how these forces work in ways both subtle and shocking. The conflict is far from over, and the answers are not easy. But understanding this tangled reality is the first step toward change. So stay with us, because what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew about power and the fools who wield it. The closer we get to the heart of this story, the clearer it becomes that the tension isn't just between leaders and followers, it's inside all of us. The battle over power isn't only fought on grand stages or in dusty history books. It's alive in everyday decisions, in the way people choose who to trust and who to doubt. The stakes have never felt higher. Everywhere you look, the signs are flashing. Leaders making reckless moves, crowds divided, truth becoming stranger than fiction. The whole world seems to be holding its breath, waiting to see what will come next. As the pressure builds, cracks start to show. The very systems built to protect society from chaos are stretched thin, bending under the weight of poor decisions and rising distrust. People who once believed in fairness and justice find themselves questioning everything. Rumors swirl, alliances shift, and no one is quite sure who really holds the power anymore. Behind closed doors, whispers of doubt grow louder, but in public, the show goes on. The foolish leader smiles, the crowd cheers, and the cycle spins faster. At the center of this storm is the leader, confident, defiant, seemingly unshaken by the growing chaos. But beneath the surface, tensions rise. Those closest begin to wonder if the mask can hold forever. Mistakes pile up, policies unravel, and the consequences start to hit hard. The people who once followed blindly start to hesitate. Some speak out, quietly at first, then louder. The media, once an echo chamber, begins to crack, showing glimpses of the truth. The social media noise turns into a roar, and suddenly the story is no longer about loyalty or hope. It's about survival. Yet, even as the cracks widen, the leader's grip tightens. Power has a way of changing people, twisting their sense of reality until they believe in their own legend. Friends become enemies, and enemies become shadows waiting to strike. The struggle for control isn't just political, it's personal, a fight for identity and legacy. The foolish leader becomes both the victim and the villain in this unfolding drama. Meanwhile, those who stand against the rising tide face impossible choices. Speak out and risk everything, or stay silent and watch the world unravel. Activists and whistleblowers gain courage but lose allies. The battle lines blur, and the cost of truth grows heavier. The question hangs in the air. Who will break the cycle first? Who will have the strength to face the chaos and demand something better? As we near the climax of this story, the tension is almost unbearable. The stage is set for a showdown that will shake the foundations of power. Every player has a part to play, some ready to fight, some waiting for the perfect moment, and others caught in the crossfire. The consequences will ripple far beyond politics, touching every life connected to this unfolding drama. And yet, the resolution remains just out of reach. The future hangs on a knife's edge, with possibility and danger intertwined. Will the cycle of foolish leadership continue, or will a new path emerge? The answer isn't simple, and the suspense is electric. Stay with us, because what comes next will challenge everything you think you know about power, leadership, and the forces that shape our world. The story isn't over. It's only just beginning. Just when it feels like the tension couldn't get any higher, the story takes an unexpected turn, one that changes everything. Right as doubts grow and the cracks widen, a new force emerges from the shadows, shifting the balance in ways nobody saw coming. This second twist isn't just a surprise. It's a game changer that throws the entire conflict into chaos. Suddenly, the lines between friend and foe blur even more, and the stakes become impossible to ignore. This new player arrives with secrets that threaten to expose the fragile foundations holding power together. Behind the scenes, whispers turn into urgent warnings, alliances crumble, and the carefully constructed image of leadership begins to fall apart. The foolish leader, once seeming untouchable, now faces challenges not just from outsiders, but from within their own circle. Trust fractures and paranoia spreads like wildfire. It's a race against time, and the outcome feels more uncertain than ever. At the same time, the people watching from the sidelines are forced to confront a harsh reality. The game isn't just about who holds power, but about what happens when that power spirals out of control. The consequences aren't just political, they hit homes, livelihoods, and the very fabric of society. The conflict deepens, revealing layers of manipulation, betrayal, and desperation that raise the stakes far beyond what anyone expected. This twist also shines a harsh light on Machiavelli's warning. The idea that power attracts not only the foolish, but those who know how to exploit that foolishness. It's a reminder that behind every misstep, there could be a calculated move, and that the surface chaos might hide a darker strategy. The story hurtles forward, building to a climax filled with danger and uncertainty. Who will survive this new upheaval? How will the foolish leader respond when the walls close in? And most importantly, what will this mean for the future of power itself? The answers are still out there, waiting in the shadows. But one thing is clear, this conflict is far from over, and the next moves will decide everything. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived, but it wasn't what anyone expected. The chaos that had been building for months reached a breaking point, and the fragile balance of power shattered in an instant. The leader, once seemingly invincible, was exposed, not by a grand revolution or a sudden betrayal, but by the quiet persistence of truth and the shifting tides of public opinion. What had been hidden behind carefully crafted illusions was laid bare for all to see. At first, disbelief rippled through the crowds. Supporters struggled to reconcile their faith with the harsh realities now undeniable. Critics, long ignored or silenced, found their voices growing stronger and harder to ignore. The systems designed to protect against foolish leadership finally showed their teeth, pushing back against the unraveling rain. It was a moment of reckoning where the weight of mistakes and manipulation could no longer be carried alone. But the climax didn't come from a single dramatic event. It was the culmination of countless small cracks becoming a chasm. Advisors who once enabled the leader turned away. Activists seized the moment, and the media shifted from cheerleaders to watchdogs. The public demanded accountability, and for a brief moment it seemed the cycle might finally be broken. Yet, just when the story seemed to be reaching its satisfying conclusion, the unexpected twist struck. The leader, stripped of power and facing the consequences, revealed a deeper game at play, a hidden network of influence far beyond what anyone imagined. The foolishness on the surface was just a mask for something far more calculated and dangerous. Power, it seemed, wasn't held by one person alone, but by shadows lurking behind the scenes, pulling strings and shaping futures. This revelation sent shockwaves through everyone. The fight wasn't over, it had simply moved to a darker, more complex arena. The very idea of foolish leaders in power now had a new meaning. It wasn't just about incompetence or bad decisions, it was about a system designed to deceive, distract, and control. As the dust settled, the story left us with a chilling question. If the fool was just a puppet, who is truly in control? The answer isn't simple, and it forces us all to look closer at the power structures around us. This is not the end, but a new beginning, a challenge to uncover the truth beneath the surface and to rethink what leadership really means. So, what happens next? How do we break free from the cycle when the real powers hide in the shadows? That's a story for another time. But for now, remember this. Power is never what it seems, and those who hold it are often not who we expect. As the dust settled from the chaos that had gripped the nation, a quiet stillness took hold, one that felt both hopeful and uncertain. The foolish leader who had once seemed untouchable was no longer at the center of power, yet the scars left behind were deep and raw. The people, shaken but awake, began to ask the hard questions they had long avoided. What had allowed such a leader to rise in the first place? How could the cycle of poor leadership be broken before it started again? In the days that followed, it became clear that the problem wasn't just about one person or one moment in history. It was a reflection of a deeper issue within society itself. The systems that had been taken for granted were fragile, and the trust that once held communities together had eroded. But with this reckoning came a chance for change. People started to see the importance of vigilance, of holding leaders accountable not just in moments of crisis, but every day. They realized that power, when unchecked, could be dangerous, but power shared wisely could bring healing. The voices that had struggled to be heard during the turmoil grew stronger. Activists, thinkers, and everyday citizens joined together, demanding transparency and integrity. Social media, once a battlefield of confusion, became a tool for connection and truth. Slowly, new leaders emerged, ones who understood the lessons of the past and were determined not to repeat its mistakes. They weren't perfect, but their commitment to listening and learning sparked a cautious optimism. Looking back, the story of foolish people rising to power is not just a tale of failure. It's a warning and a call to action. It reminds us that leadership is not a prize for the loudest or the boldest, but a responsibility earned through wisdom, humility, and service. Machiavelli's insights remain relevant because they expose uncomfortable truths about human nature and power. Yet, they also challenge us to be better, to see beyond appearances and demand more from those who lead. As this chapter closes, the cycle isn't completely broken. The tension between hope and fear, wisdom and folly, still lingers. But what has changed is the awareness, the recognition that the power to shape the future lies not only in the hands of a few, but in the hearts and minds of many. The story ends here for now, but the conversation continues, because the fate of any society depends on the choices made today. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the mysteries of power, leadership, and human nature. If this story made you think, question, or feel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Power to Unlocked. The path forward is in all our hands, and together we can work toward a world where wisdom leads and foolishness no longer holds the throne.